to another special live event. This is the live launch event for Cursed from Faerie Publishing, who are an Australian-based publisher. And this is a speculative fiction wizards microfiction anthology, and that is one hell of a mouthful. It's basically this is the second part in a series. There's 2 books. The first one came out sort of earlier last year, and it's called Once, and it was basically speculative fiction for princesses, and all of the authors in it were female authors. So the publisher decided we're going to do a companion piece to it, do it invite only, and it's all going to be blokes. It's all going to be men only. So yes, I was invited to it, and so were my guests tonight. I'll tell you more about the book and how you can get hold of it. Faerie Publishing is going down the bottom here. Yes, I will tell you more about all that stuff later. For now, I'm going to introduce my first guest. Now, this fella, most of you are going, oh no, not him again.
Again.
He is God's gift to the beard trimmer manufacturers, Mr. David Green. How are you doing, sir?
Yeah, great. Yeah, I need to trim my beard. Actually, it's looking a bit scraggly and a bit grey in some areas now. But yeah, it's great. I think while we're on this stream, it'll become my birthday as well. So I'm actually going to age before your eyes.
Really? It's actually going to be your birthday. Ah, right.
It's going to be my birthday tomorrow. Yeah. So
fucking hell.
Yeah. So when it hits midnight, I will age before everyone's eyes. And
you need to do a birthday dance.
No, I'm not doing that.
We'll clap you on and stuff.
I'm going to be 38, so I can't really do that kind of dancing stuff anymore because you know yourself, it's hard to get out of bed in the mornings.
Yeah, I know, but I'm older than you, and I dance around the flat in my underwear every time I get an acceptance.
Yeah. Well, I've got no excuses really, then, have I?
Exactly, sir. Exactly. Yeah. Well, so, would you like to tell us a little bit about your contribution to Cursed and give us a bit of a reading?
I will give you a bit of a reading. So
excellent. So I will leave you to it then, sir.
Thank you.
Oh no, wrong one.
That's funny because we were joking the other day that me, you, Tim Mendees, and a few other people were actually just the same person, and that's why we're so kind of all over the place at the moment. And you almost confirmed it there. So my entry is to Curse. So this was a anthology where we got asked to do a maximum of 9 stories, but it's all microfiction, so it was a maximum of 5 drabbles, which is 100 words exactly, and then 4 250-word stories as well. Okay, so they didn't all need to be linked in the same character, but that's what I did because I thought I'll tell a little story with the 9. It's kind of a cheat kind of way to kind of get a bigger word count, so bear that in mind for the future. So my one is about a wizard called Winston Hill, who he's a Cockney wide boy kind of fella, like a bit like Del Boy, but he's actually a great wizard, but he is a bit of an idiot at the same time. So he does something quite stupid, which could mean that the world is about to end, as you do on a Friday night. So this is the first 2 bits of the 9. So it's a drabble and a 250-word story. So the first bit is called A Wizard's Folly. My mother called my curiosity a curse. I'm grateful she's dead so she can't gloat. Trust me, she would. I come from an ancient line of wizards and witches, back from when folk didn't have to search the dark corners of the world for magic. Hunting whispers and rumours. We of the Crucible, the Society of Magi, prefer it that way. Centuries of persecution and burnings will do that. Now, it looks like I, Winston Hill, shall be the last wizard. Not just in my family. Ever. My curiosity has killed magic, and all hell is about to break loose. So the second part is called The Crux. As well as being a curious sort, I'm a tad dramatic. I haven't killed magic. I have absorbed it, so no one else can use it. Now, I didn't do this on purpose. The Crucible won't care. Sticklers for rules. All the legions of creatures, fae, and unaffiliated magic users who, right at this moment, are cursing my ancestors that I ever existed. Limiting magic to just one person might sound like fun for the wizard or witch who possesses it. Imagine the possibilities. Thing is, the world runs on magic. It's oxygen. Can't survive without it. Making matters worse, I've no idea how to put it back. So here I am, standing in the middle of Stonehenge. The full moon is bright in the night sky, unimaginable power at my fingertips, with no knowledge of how I've managed this, or the slightest inkling of how I'm going to fix it. And that's the crux of the problem. Like I said, I'm given to dramatic moments, but believe me when I say this, if I don't figure out a way to return everyone's magic, it won't matter that I've angered all the magic users and creatures of the earth. The planet will die, and everyone on it, of course. I glance around at the silent stones. Even the nearby motorway is silent. Stranger this time of night, but I've more pressing matters. Thousands of stars look down at me, judging. Any ideas? I ask. They don't answer. Of course they wouldn't. Fine. Didn't want your help anyway. And that is the last part of it. If you want to know more, you have to get the book, which is really good. I finished reading it myself there recently, and it's great. It's really original, and confining the word count is like is a really kind of great way to get some good work out of people, I think.
Yeah. It was kind of brutal to me, but I'm sure you'll tell everybody about that during the course of
it. Oh yeah, I will.
It's on my count on you, mate.
It's on my little list of things to talk about.
I thought it might be. Yeah. Cheers for that, mate. Okay. All right. My next guest this evening, I've shared a table of contents with a bunch of times, but this is going to be actually the first time that I've actually spoken to the guy face to face. I'm talking about G Allen Wilbanks. Yes. Gary, how are you doing?
I'm doing just great, Tim. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good, mate. Very good. So tell us a little bit about what you're going to be reading tonight, and then give us a sample, sir.
All right. Well, like David said before, we were invited to do 9 pieces for Iron Faerie. I also submitted and sent in 5 drabbles and 4 of the microfiction pieces, the 250 words. Unlike David, though, mine are not all linked by a central character. Each piece of mine is a separate standalone piece. So I've selected 2 stories, one of the 250 word microfiction pieces and then one of the drabbles. And if we're all ready, I'll go ahead and jump right into them. The first story is Clash of Color. My entire world narrowed down to the clear, round gemstone at the center of the table in front of me. I willed the obdurate object to glow green, but it remained stubbornly transparent. My opponent, seated across the table from me and similarly focused upon the gem, narrowed his eyes and grimaced as he tried to turn it red. I trickled more power towards my target, attempting to counter and overwhelm the efforts of my foe. Carefully, gradually, I increased the flow of magic. The struggle was delicate. This battle was far more than a simple contest of brute strength. Too much magical energy introduced too quickly would damage the gem. It would crack or perhaps even shatter to pieces. And to break the stone was a defeat for me as surely as if I had allowed it to glow red. A tiny flicker of ruby appeared in the center. I quickly tamped it down before it could gain purchase. Close, but not yet a loss. I was not bested until the entire sphere turned blood red. I could not let that happen. Another push of my will against my enemies, and at last I felt my mind gain connection to the stone. I was inside, shielding the gem from any further intrusion from opposing efforts. It flared a brilliant emerald green. Ha! I have you, I shouted in triumph. I grabbed my empty beer mug and slid it across the table towards my challenger. You're buying the next round. The second piece is a drabble, 100 words. It's called A Lesson in Manners. The sorcerer gazed up at the towering demon trapped in his circle. I have summoned you, creature, and order you to bow before me. The demon bared massive white fangs. Perhaps you should say, please. It would be more polite. I need not be polite with you, vile beast from hell. I am your master. Taking one slow step forward, the demon left the confinement circle, taking advantage of a break in the pattern caused by a careless scuff of the wizard's foot. A taloned claw lashed out, snaring the sorcerer by his robes. You really should have said, please. And that was part of my contribution to Cursed. I have a few more in there, so if you'd like to read those, please get a copy of the book. And I see Tim is back, and he's about to tuck me back into my little corner and bring somebody else out.
Well, not quite. I was about to say, I love the snarky-ass demon. I'm a sucker for a snarky demon. You know, there's like demons that go, yeah. The demon that sits there and goes, you might want to be polite there, pal. I've got horns, mate. You know.
He had no need to torment anyone. He knew he could do whatever he pleased.
Well, it's like that old thing, isn't it? That really powerful people don't need to shout.
Right.
Yeah. I've always loved that concept. You know, it's like I love villains in movies that are all polite and like your classic Bond villains. You know,
or like Alan Rickman, Die Hard.
Oh, absolutely. Alan Rickman is the archetypal one that I'm thinking of. Yeah, or he's Sheriff of Nottingham, or it's all like it's great. Yeah, brilliant stuff. Well, thank you for that, mate. That was great. Now, my next guest is another person who I've spoken to quite a lot online, but I've never actually spoken to face to face. And we share a love of all things tentacular. My next guest is Mr. Charles Reis.
Hello.
How are you doing, mate?
I'm good. You?
Yeah, very good. Yeah, you need to come on after hours at some point so we can talk tentacles.
Oh, yes. My favorite subject matter. Yes.
Yeah, exactly, man. Because you're a bit of a squid head Lovecraftian like myself, aren't you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I live in the state where Lovecraft was born.
Exactly, Rhode Island, man. Yeah, Lovecraft. Well, it's like when people say about bucket lists and things. My bucket list is to go to Providence. And soak up them vibes, man.
His books around Providence.
Yeah.
I've been to several of them already.
Oh, nice, man. Right. So are you all right to tell us a little bit about what you've done and give us a bit of a reading?
Absolutely.
Limber up.
All right.
Right, mate. I'll come back.
All right. So, hi. Little nervous, but I'll get through it. So I contributed 2 microfictions and 2 drabbles. They're not connected, but each drabble is and each piece is based on certain aspect of culture and folklore from around the world. Example, Mashallah was based on Arabic and Islamic beliefs and culture, and Tokoloshi is Zulu. But the one I'm going to read you is called Orang Minyak, which is Malaysian. Forgive me for anybody who might be from Malaysia if I mispronounce the words. Google was not very helpful with how to pronounce these things, so I'm going to go with it. So I shall begin. Wind slammed against Azila's house, creaking the timber frame structure. A few oil lamps pushed back some of the darkness in the high ceiling room. 3 young women joined her in sitting on the floor around a cloth topped with dishes. They talked and laughed as they ate food like duck, fish, and rice. Azila heard several gasping breaths from the next room that was devoid of light. Squeezing her lips together, she nodded at the others. They put down their utensils, stood, and looked towards the room. The gasp grew louder. With her chest rapidly rising and falling, Azlina remained firm and clenched her jaw. She had waited for hours for them to come. 3 tall naked men with no faces and skin made of oil emerged from the dark room. They crept closer to the women. As Lena scrunched her nose from the smell of rotten eggs that came from these creatures. They were the Orang Minyak, summoned by a vengeful Pawang to violate the town's virgins. Since they were ones themselves, she knew they would come. As Lena's knew powerful magic and set this trap, she didn't blink as she focused on them. As the women stood side by side, they chanted, danced in place, and waved their hands up and down. The tip of their fingers glowed red. The Orang Minyak's gasping turned into cries as they curled into a ball. Steam rose from their skins. As Lena smiled as the creatures transformed into smoke, then vanished into in the air. Well, hope I did well there.
Nice, very well done, mate. Yeah. No, I like that. I'm thinking, I'm a big fan of obscure mythologies and things like that.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I love reading it. It's the sort of thing I will sit and just read about. I'll go, I'm just going to Google like mythologies of some random country because there's so many of them.
Yeah, and I swear they're both like similar to what we will have like in Europe and North America, and then like totally different at the same time. It's very fascinating. And
yeah, definitely.
I hate mispronouncing the names because, you know, Google, like, they have that lady, like, it's pronounced this way. And I'm like, please don't doubt that, but I'll try.
Yeah, no, but you did the right thing there, man. You just said, look, I'll, you know, apologies if I get it wrong. I mean, because, I struggle pronouncing anything that's vaguely exotic because I hope really flat vowels being from the north of England. Everything comes out as like,
right,
so,
right.
You know. It's some words I can't wrap my tongue around at all. So even, you know, I thought you did a great job there, man.
Oh,
no, that's good. Cheers for that, sir. I will get you back on in a second. Right, yes. I forgot to say at the top because I'm an idiot. We will have a live Q&A once we've done our introductory bits. So if you want to start getting your questions down in the comments, we've had some really funny comments already. Some great stuff. If you want to get some questions down for the writers, that'll be absolutely superb. Right, I'm going to bring up my next guest now. Now, anybody who's watched my After Hours series of interview videos, this guy is going to need no introduction. He is the guest that it's comedy gold. In certain circles, I mean, between myself and Callum Pearce, who I know is watching, his name has become an adjective. Meaning, for if you get very, very drunk, you get keystowed. Here he is, Chisto Healy. How are you doing, sir?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm mostly sober. So
I saw you. I can see all you guys in the green room. By the way, I saw you chugging back booze then.
What? What?
That isn't Willy Wonka juice again, is it?
What? What?
Oh, fucking hell. Right, anyway, while you can still talk, right, while you can still speak, tell us a little bit about your contributions to Cursed and give us a reading, sir. I will come back on if you completely crash and burn.
Okay, well, as far as Cursed, I'm actually a little disappointed that I didn't get in as many pieces as some of the other authors. I was invited, and I was in the middle of doing many other things, and I said, "Sure, I'll do that. 3 pieces, and 2 drabbles, and a microfiction. Sure, no problem." And I just wrote them and sent them that day. And then I was like, I'm going to try to get more done if I can get to it. And then the book was out. So I've got 3 pieces in there. I'm going to read a couple of them if I can. Iron Faerie is very cool and has been very good to me, I will say. Here we go. The first one is called Hand Me Down. In relation to the others, mine are not connected whatsoever. They're all separate pieces. Violet backed away from the snarling wolves, her hand clutching tightly to her mother's amulet that hung around her neck. Violet's eyes were closed, but she could hear the savage animals snarling. Violet wished that she had magic like her mother used to, but magic no longer existed in the world. During a violent clash of power between the mages, there was a great flash, and when it subsided, all magic was gone, and so was Violet's mother. The snarling intensified. The amulet warmed in her hand. The snarls became whimpers, and then silence. Thanks, Mom. Okay, and then the second one is called A New World. Morrigan exited the portal into a new world with no grass. The ground was made of stone, and the carriages were forged of steel. They emitted putrid smoke as they passed. He tugged his hat down to cover his face. Morrigan hoped the staff he used to escape the king's army would not look suspicious. There were people traversing the stone road, but they weren't like him. Their tunics had strange images and weren't tucked into their breeches. Their shoes were held by strings. Morrigan found a dark alleyway and turned, comforted by the shadows. The steel carriages roared like beasts as they zipped by. At least there weren't swords in his face. The king wanted him dead for using magic to aid the rebellion, but the king was dirty and he poisoned the other leaders at a peace summit. He deserved it. Morrigan had the god staff forged from the branches of Yggdrasil. It opened portals to anyone, and it took him here. A shadow notified Morrigan that he was no longer alone. He found someone in a hood facing him with a wand that was also made of steel, pointed at the wizard's chest. Money, he said. Morrigan eyed him quizzically, and he responded by pointing his steel wand upwards. There was a loud bang and a flash. Morrigan took the hint, slamming his own staff into the ground and twisting the root at its base. Sigils lit up along it as Morrigan made his exit. He came through the new portal and found himself staring at an array of swords pointed at his face. Damn it all, Morrigan said. So, hopefully you enjoyed that. I would actually like to go further with that story and delve more into that world in the future.
Excellent. You should do, man. You should do some follow-ups to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I thought you did well there. Yeah. Anybody would think you were sober. Aha. Right, yes, we've just been joined by our final guest today. Cheers, Chisto. I will get you back on in a bit, mate. Right, we've been joined by our final guest, Mr. Chris Hall. How are you doing, sir?
Hello,
How's
Tim.
it going?
It's going very well. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Very good. Yeah,
Good.
Glad you could make it, mate.
As am I. Thrilled to be here. Thank you.
No worries, mate. So, are you ready to give us a bit of a tell us a little bit about what you did for the anthology and give us a reading, sir?
Sure. So I have had somewhat limited experience with Iron Fairy Press, though I love the name, and I've gotten to know online a little bit. I've gotten to know the editor and publisher, Stacey Morrigan McIntosh, though that's not what she goes by all the time. That's what I know her as. And I kind of connected with her over that middle name she's chosen, that Morrigan, who's if you know anything about Celtic mythology, the Morrigan is the goddess of sort of death and war and prophecy, sexuality, among other things. And my great interest really is Celtic mythology. It's been a long-standing, long-abiding passion of mine. And so I'm going to read 3 brief pieces, if that's okay, Tim. 3 drabbles. And these are all based on various Celtic legends, primarily the legend of Finn McCool, who, if you don't know anything about Finn McCool, he was a great hero, sometimes compared to King Arthur, sometimes called the Irish King Arthur, who was the leader of a group of mythical warriors known as the Fianna, who sometimes did the will of the High King, but they were sort of their own force within ancient Ireland. And they're kind of an amazing, magical, mythical stories about Finn McCool in ancient medieval manuscripts that tell stories that are much older, dating back to the oral tradition. So scholars tend to argue. So this is based on two sources primarily, the boyhood deeds of Finn McCool and the colloquy of the ancients, both of which, again, are kind of that medieval Irish literature that harkens back to an even earlier time, sort of mythological past of Ireland, something that's always kind of hit a special chord with me. And so what I did was, for these pieces, I imagined, what if we looked at Finn's history, what we know of the legendary mythological character of Finn McCool, and looked at that history not so much as a warrior's story, which it's usually conveyed as, and not even as a druid's story. For Finn was also a druid. He studied the arts of druidry with a man who took him in when he was young named Finnegas. But what if we looked at Finn as a magician whose greatest feat was immortality, something magicians have often strove to acquire and to attain. And the way that Finn arguably has achieved immortality is there's a story that goes that if Finn McCool's name is ever, if a day ever passes on Earth in which Finn McCool's name is not spoken, the world will end. And so I don't know about you, but if the world ended if no one said my name, I'd call that immortality. I'd call that fame. So he achieved that. And maybe he did it through magic. And maybe that magic was druidry. Maybe it was magic of a different sort. And here are three brief drabbles sort of exploring the mythological dimensions of Finn McCool. I know it's a lot of preamble, but one last bit of preamble is a passion of mine is writing about the connections between humans and the rest of the world, the more than human world, nature. So what I'm looking at in the second drabble that I read, I want you to look for listeners can pay attention to the connection between the character and nature and how it sort of explores that human, more than human connection. Okay, it's probably enough preamble. The first one is called The Prophetic Youth. This ties into the Finn McCool story of the Salmon of Knowledge, in which Finn acquired great knowledge through tasting of this salmon that his druidic mentor Finnegas had him catch. It was not supposed to taste of the salmon. He was supposed to give it all to Finnegas, but he tasted of it. He burned his thumb when he was cooking it, stuck his thumb in his mouth. And from that point on, whenever he put his thumb in his mouth, he had all knowledge. He was omniscient. So the prophetic youth. To descry a kingdom's ruin in a raven's flight, to taste of the old fish Finton's flesh and see all things revealed, such was my gift, and yes, my curse. For to drink too deeply of the cauldron's black waters is to taste its limits, to know that infinity itself must one day cease to be. And so, though my uncle hailed from the land of the young, in my beginning I have seen the end. Tasting of the salmon's flesh, I know, imbus ferocni, sweet savor of inspiration and illumination, yes, but the aftertaste is ashes and graveyard dust. So that's the first one, and that one word in there, imbus ferocni, is that all knowledge, that all-knowing sort of quality that was one of the abilities that you had to have to be a poet in ancient Ireland. The bards had to have these three different abilities: the ability to recite extemporaneously, to know the sort of meter and structure of language, and to have this inspiration that illuminates, that imbus ferocni. Okay. And I'm not really keeping my eye on the comments. I'm seeing a little bit in the private chat. I'll try to address if there are any comments, or maybe that waits for the FAQ at the end. But the next one is the one I was talking about that touches on sort of the middle segment of Finn's life. And this is linked also to a kind of tripartite structure that people look at in terms of the story of Merlin and other kind of magician-like figures. So I sort of discerned a similar pattern within Finn's story with the original sort of prophetic youth. When he was young, he had these visions of prophecy. When he was in his kind of young man coming of age, he had this wild man period, and then he became the sort of wise elder. So anyway, that's the sort of the chronological division of these three. Here's the next one, the wild man of the woods. I know, and I noticed in the chat, we have private chat, we have a backstage, we have a person from Ireland here, so I hope I'm getting my details right. If I butcher anything or misspeak, forgive me. I can only ask you forgive me. This is the wild man of the woods. Planting my feet on solid ground, I turned my eyes from youthful visions, tending instead to the here and now. My steps pounded a steady pulse as I roamed the wilds, searching for the fawn, the woman, my love. In the forest's depths, on the glossy green surface of a leaf, I spied my reflection, bearded, haggard, and wild-eyed. A green man's face stared back at me, my naked self merged with the greenwood, a visage refracted in dew-soaked verdure, a man's body swallowed in a fawn's embrace. I'd lost my love, but our progeny would live to tell my tale. And if you are a fan of Irish mythology, Finn McCool's son was known as Oisin. There's a very famous legend about Oisin following a woman named Niamh into the world of Faerie, and then he has a tragic ending. I won't go into the details now, but I will say that this story is kind of about Finn chasing a woman who he first encounters in the form of a deer, because she's been shape-shifted into a deer as a curse by a druid whose affections she spurned. So there's tie-ins to mythology throughout this. I'm just explicating a tiny bit of it so that it's not completely lost on you all. I don't mean to bore anyone with a lecture. But here's the next one. The Wise Elder is the last but not least one. And this one is mostly my own invention, sort of looking at these stories of Finn McCool as if perhaps none of them were literally true, but that perhaps the stories he left behind in his wake are his greatest feat of magic. The Wise Elder. How shall they remember me? As a fool? As a wise man? I was never the prophetic youth or the wild man of the woods. Never did I feel the hot sting of the salmon upon my thumb, nor taste of the crone's cauldron. Never did I seek solace in solitude among the leafy shade of unpeopled places when crushing blows of defeat nearly crippled me. Yet before you say I have worked no magic, consider two things, a question and a truth. The worms shall devour your flesh as they did mine. How long will men remember your name? That's all, folks.
Excellent. Yeah, very good, man. Yeah, I can tell you're a bit into your mythology there, mate.
Thank you. Yes, it's a bit.
Yeah. I know somebody who's done his research.
Well, I tried. You know, I went through the first maybe quarter of my life. Thanks for the applause in the chat there, everyone. And there were moments in my life where I knew little bits of mythology, and then I felt this need to delve deeper because I loved it my whole life, and I never really sat down and read the whole damn books of mythology people kept buying me. So I spent a lot of time over the last 5 or 6 years really studying this stuff, and I find it sparks my creativity like nothing else. So I appreciate the chance to share that.
Yeah.
Through this venue.
Oh, yeah. You've definitely done your own work, mate. I approve.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Well, yes. Well, you were saying about there's a Q&A after this. So we'll go through the comments and people will ask questions and all that kind of business. Because, what people don't know is that he had real life stuff to deal with. So he came into this late, so he didn't get the brief.
Right. Yes, and apologies for that. Man. Really appreciate the
No. Real life has to happen, mate. Real life has to happen.
Doesn't it? Yeah.
All right. Cheers for that. I'll see you in a bit. Right. So, that leaves one more person. And that'll be me. Right, so I know I'm not going to go too far into how much of a complete cock up I made of this, because I know certain people are going to bring it up. But anyway, for me was well out of my comfort zone, especially as when I signed on for it, I thought it was something completely different. I didn't realize what the word counts were because I'm an idiot. But anyway, I started off doing something and it's still going on. I mean, that thing I started doing is still happening. It's currently about novella length. But I had to, once it had been pointed out to me that I'd been a complete clot, I had to start over again. And there'd been a lot of talk on the group, because we had a group for this set up by Stacey from Iron Faerie. And we'd had a lot of chat about cat wizards. And me being the cosmic horror nerd that I am, I decided, let's get a bit cosmic with this. So I decided to incorporate the ultimate mystical cats, the cats of Ulthar. Why not? So my 9 pieces are linked. they're linked. It's an overarching story, and they're linked by 2 characters. Now I'm going to read two chapters that are back to back, but they come like third and fourth, I think, in the series. Just give you a nice flavour. Right, the first one is called Insistent Voices. Where's that blasted book? Tremaine had turned his chambers upside down, but still there was no sign of what he sought. A sudden burst of pain jabbed him in the hand and radiated up his arm and into his brain. Why do you delay? The insidious voice of Atlak Naka chittered. The book. It is of no importance. The web is almost complete. I have given you powers unmatched by your puny kind. You must plant the totem at a place of power to tether the web. Do not delay. Tremaine fell to his knees and clawed at his aching skull. He could feel the mighty legs and furred abdomen of the great spider crawling inside his brain. Eventually it passed. Time was running out. If he didn't do as instructed soon, Atlak Naka would destroy his mind. He knew now that his new power came with a price. He was forever cursed to do the great spinner's bidding. Dusting himself down, Tremaine hurried to the door and onto the street. Toffs in top hats jostled for the attention of a hansom cab. He didn't have time for this nonsense. Raising his hands, he bit his lip until it bled and focused his new powers. Millions of ravenous spiders burst from the cracks in the pavement and consumed everyone in their path, leaving only a gossamer carpet. Tremaine climbed aboard the cab and smiled at the terrified man holding the reins. To the blasted crag, my good man. Don't spare the horses. The next piece is called Cobwebs. Louisa opened her eyes. All she could see was web. Her body was burning and paralyzed. She was so tightly bound that not even her toes could wiggle. Through the gaps in her gossamer cocoon, she could see legs, huge, spindly, bristling with hairs. The hungry mandibles of the enormous spider started to lower towards her face. Use your power. Call on a guardian. Louisa concentrated. Her body throbbed with magic. As the spider went to strike, a hissing ball of angered fur slammed into it, knocking it off her body. Soon she was free, released by sharp claws. Right, yes. So that's gives you a taster of what my sort of cosmic horror wizardry thing is. Right, so what I'm going to do now is, again, like I said, if you want to get your questions down, we will answer them as we go along. Before I do that, that's how you can get hold of the book. It is available. Somebody asked in the comments if it was available on ebook. Yes, it is available on ebook. It's also available in paperback, and that's how you get hold of a copy. That is getbook.at/cursed. Okay, so first off, we'll bring back Mr. Green mid-quaff.
Joking.
I know. And then we'll bring back Mr. Wilbanks, Mr. Reis, Mr. Healy, and
Hello.
Mr. Hall. Hello, all. Yeah, I thought you all did great there, man. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, and again, for the people who missed it at the beginning, somebody's actually got a real copy, not a piece of cardboard with a picture on it.
It's very small. It's adorable.
Is it sort of the
Perfectly. Here we go. There you go.
yeah, there we go. Kindle edition. There you go. You see?
Yeah, that's all I have. Right
Yeah,
now.
superb. Yeah, so
Great
we were
cover,
we were all basically invited, weren't we, to this? Because I think the first I knew about this was David. Because
Yeah, it was invitation only, she told me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they'd done the princess one and they wanted a group of blokes to do a wizards one sort of thing. Yeah, and I didn't read the brief completely. Go on. I know you're dying to do it.
Yeah. You see, like Stacey at one point said to me, who's good to ask to do this? And I was like, I recommended Tim. And then Tim just embarrassed me completely. I was like, he's a really good guy. Like, I was like, he's a great writer, and he's always on time. He's early, in fact, and he never causes any trouble. So there was like a tight deadline for this, and so obviously the brief was 5 100-word drabbles, and then 4 250-word microfictions, and Tim is famous for just not even ignoring word counts. He doesn't understand what a word count is. He looks at the numbers and the thing saying word count next to it, and he's just like, doesn't apply to me, and does his own thing. Well, obviously with these ones, it's like it's a style of writing, so you have to stick to it. But anyway, Tim, being Tim, got a little bit excited and approached Stacey and said, so the 250 word count is a bit
2,500. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, can I get an extension on one of them, please? And she was like, yeah, which one? It was like, well, the 2,500 one, I'm already at 3,000 words. She's like, it's 250 words, Tim. And yeah, I've never, my judgment has been not trusted since.
Mate, I still delivered before the deadline.
Yeah, it's a great story.
There's one of the reasons I always go early in case I cock it up.
It's one of the best Tim stories that I heard, and I'm glad that it happened because it's
yeah.
250 words is one of my favorite lengths. Anytime that happens, like 100 is hard. You gotta really work with every single word, and 500 sometimes it's like it makes you think you have like a good amount, but then like you get too involved in the story and you're like, it's a mess. But 250 is like just enough to like do world building and get it good. I really have fun with that.
Anything under 3,000 is a nightmare to me. Seriously, I struggle, man. I really do. And that brings us to our first question from Mr. Callum Pearce. Hello, matey, who is actually in this he's actually in this book himself. All of you, but Tim especially. Cheers, mate. When you have to go small with the word count, what do you do to get the beat? First thing I do is panic.
Probably a good thing to do.
We'll go around the group. David, go for it.
Well, I kind of cheated on this one because I had no intention of making them all separate. So I was like, I'm just going to do a short story and just split it into sections, which is pretty
exactly
much
what I did, mate. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
I was splitting a novelette to begin with.
Yeah, that's true. That's
true. But, yeah.
Which is really cheating. Like, you know, there's cheating, and then there's Tim Mendees, which is like the screen size. But yeah, so that's what I did. I kind of just cheated, and I was like, right, I'll just plot out a whole story and just kind of split it into little bits where I can do a scene as 100 and a bigger bit that has like dialogue and things happening in the 250 bits. So that's how I kind of worked it out. I was like, right, when do I need something to happen, and when can I just have the guy talking to someone, one other person, or just himself? Like, so that's what I kind of did. But in general, I don't really find it much of a struggle, to be honest with you. I just like, I just do it. I can get, if I'm doing drabbles, I can usually get them very much onto 100 words straight away. When I first started doing them, I didn't. I was getting up to like 200 words, and I had to go through it and just go like, I need to get rid of all this crap, which is a good way of looking at it, because sometimes I just look at it and go, is this crap needed? No, it's crap. Get rid of it. That's one way of doing it. But yeah, I enjoy it.
Some people's over work.
Yeah. That's true.
Without crap, I'm screwed.
I quite like doing like 500 or 1,000 as just like as a kind of practice kind of thing, just to do it. But yeah, I don't really struggle. I'm quite good with word counts, really. Which although it's something that
for about 2,000 words right now.
I know, yeah. Well, this is my moment to shine. But it's actually the last time that me and Tim worked together or something, I had a word count limit from Tim and I went way over it, which is unusual for me. So
yeah.
Tim's like, yeah, that's right, damn it.
Yeah. I think
his comment was, well, that's what I'd expect. I thought you'd expect it.
Yeah.
To be honest, it was quite fine with me, you know. I'm not sure Dean feels the same way, but pretty much everything in that project of mine went way over the limit. So,
it's because we were all trying to emulate you.
Word counts.
Yeah, we were all trying to emulate you and just please you by being over word counts. We knew that's what you wanted to do.
It's appreciated.
Yeah. That's me anyway. Goodbye.
Hey. Moving on. Yeah. Gary, if you want to answer the same question.
Sure. The first Drabble I ever wrote was only about 2.5 years ago. I'd never done it before. The first time I had to write one, I wasn't actually sure how much of an idea I could work with that I could squeeze into 100 words. But since that, in the last 2 years, I've written literally hundreds of Drabbles now. And now not all of them get published. Some of them don't even make it past my desk because I look at them and they're absolute crap. So, but it's 100 words. So in that time, over the last couple of years, I've written so many of them that I just kind of have an idea in my head. If I get a picture, I know right away if I could squeeze that into 100 words or not. Some ideas just need to be fleshed out more, but some you can really keep them tight and still get a story across in that 100 words. And it's just, over time, I've gotten better at picking out the ideas in my head that'll work within 100 words. Now, with longer stories, I'm still having issues, and I love writing longer pieces, but I actually have a harder time keeping to a word count with a longer piece because I do lose track of how much backstory I could put in, how much character building and world building that I could squeeze into that number. Recently, I was asked to do a piece that had a 5,000 word limit, and I find myself 2 days ago sending a quick email saying, "Hey, how's 7,000? Does that work on your 5,000 word limit? Because I don't know where to cut 2,000 words and still make the story I wrote work."
Yeah, welcome to my world, mate. That's what I'm doing constantly.
But yeah, for the Drabbles, I find those are getting easier the more I do them. I just have a better idea what works within 100 words. But if you've got a tip for how to make a 5,000, 10,000, whatever word story stay within its mark, I'd love to hear it because I'm still working on that.
Excellent. Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah. It is a discipline, I think, the whole Drabble thing. And I'm just not a very disciplined person. And whereas you say stuff doesn't even make it past your desk, I tend to write down most of my stuff in shorthand. I tend to do all my notes and things in shorthand. And every time I try and do a bloody Drabble, I end up with a pyramid of screwed up paper in the corner of my flat. Seriously, man.
I write a lot of my Drabbles by hand, but I don't go for the word count. All I do is I write the idea down. And if the idea works within 100 words, then I can pull up my computer and work that 100 word count. But if I'm scribbling stuff down and I realize I'm already at 200 words, that's a no-go from the start.
Yeah. Okay, mate. Right, we'll move on to Charles. So if you want to answer the same question, sir.
Well, I kind of really don't keep the word count right away. First, I come up with a plot in my head and then write it out and then edit it down by usually removing adjectives and adverbs and useless descriptions that are not going to be, needed. It was like, oh, she had, the sky was blue. And I'm like, well, who cares? Everybody knows the sky's blue. Unless it was like some type of demonic force and then it'd be red. But doing that, I actually find was actually really helps condense it, and you really get creative. A thesaurus works great because then you realize you can like, ooh, I use one word and it can like mean something that really can be expanded on. Instead of using like 20 words, you can just use one word. So yeah, no adjectives, no adverbs, no useless description, and a thesaurus is my god.
Just thinking about that, German must be a really good language to do drabbles in, because they tend to combine words.
That's true.
Like the German language, they combine words a lot. That'd be I tell you what, that's what I'm going to do next time. I'll write all my drabbles in German.
I'd love to hear someone reading a German drabble. That'd be great.
Oh, gosh.
That's our next
I know a
challenge.
few people who can do it, probably.
We just need to find somebody to publish that one, right?
Yeah.
Kanji could be a whole sentence.
Exactly so.
A drabble could be a 2,000-word story.
Badger. No, not quite. Yeah. Have you anything else to say, Charles? Sorry, I've kind of babbled over you. No.
No, that's fine.
Nope, you're done. Yep. All right. On to the man in the middle, Captain Chisto. Go for it, sir.
All right. Well, I'm actually going to give credit to somebody who's in the audience tonight, if they're still there, and that's Michelle River. I didn't even know a drabble existed or what a drabble was until about June of 2020. And the first time I found out, I was like, oh, it has to be exactly 100 words. That's fun. So I wrote some terrible crap that was 100 words and got rejected a few times. And then it's true. It's totally true. And then I started really thinking about like just they're really cool because like you take out all the stuff that's not necessary and every single word in a drabble matters. And I was like, that's awesome. It's awesome to have a story where every word is important. But then I was still like trying to like create these big things that traveled like years and miles in the 100 words. And it didn't really work, you know. It's like then it just sounds like, you know, when you're writing a story, so many publishers will tell you you're telling, not showing. You need to show.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to encompass like way too much in 100 words, you're telling. And Michelle River is the one person who said to me, a drabble needs to be a moment. Like you can create your world and your characters and everything, but the drabble itself is one moment in time. Focus on that moment. And I use that every single time I write a drabble to try to keep it down and be able to show and have the words be important in showing what's happening rather than telling what's happening. So I have to thank Michelle River for that.
Cool. Right. Mr. Hall.
All right. So Alan and Chisto, am I saying your name right? How do you say your first name?
Chisto.
Chisto. Thank you, sir. That's
like
right.
your keys in your toe.
Okay, I like it. Keys and toe. So Mr. Keys and Toe and Alan. Alan, do I have your name right? I thought you were referred to by something else.
It's Gary. It's Gary. I write under my middle name. My name is Gary.
Okay, so thanks, Gary. I'm glad I caught that. Gary and Chisto Gary mentioned the idea of having an image to work from, and once the image kind of crystallized for him, he could write the drabble. And Chisto mentioned sort of that one moment, and I feel like that's really the key to drabbles for me. And I'll say, in all honesty, I'm familiar with various forms of microfiction. I even had a class on short literary forms in college, but I missed the drabble until, as editor of my community college, where I teach in California, as one of the co-editors of the literature portion of our kind of art and literature mag, I found a drabble by a colleague of mine that just knocked my socks off. I'm not going to say her name because she's very shy. She's like a lot of good writers. She's very, very shy. But it was incredible. It was about waking up next to her husband after this dream about being a Viking in a past life, and in which she killed her husband, where they were warriors fighting. And the subtext was so subtle, and it was so, every word was so artfully delivered. I was like, I got to try this. And it really Drabbles have marked a turning point for me in my career as a writer, in that it's gotten me out of my fear of trying to submit creative writing and really like commit to it, because they're very accessible forms, aren't they? If you have an hour, you can really craft a 100-word piece pretty well. Sometimes I spend longer than an hour on one, but as far as tips for people who might want to learn from my mistakes, I would say that if I could give the same attention to every word that I give to a Drabble, that's how I would write everything.
Yeah.
And you know, it really, I think it's good training for us. And I just try to be humble. Like I'm older than I'm often told I look. I age in Hobbit years. I've been around a while, and I still feel like I'm just starting to get this writing thing a little bit. You know, I'm getting a little bit of success and a little bit of talent at it, a little bit of skill at it, I should say. And Drabbles really help. They really help you dial it down, because you have to look at every word. You have to combine clumsy passive verbs with a bunch of adverbs into a single strong action verb. You have to combine clumsy, ill-conceived strings of adjectives and nouns into a single strong concrete noun. And that's the kind of thing that I think is the training we all need, or the practice we all need as writers. And I take great joy in it. You know, I teach creative writing as well. And I find one of the things that I think I have to offer students is I enjoy that shit that some people hate. Like, I love looking at that little tiny bit of text and looking at what's good in it. And another quick just tip that I sort of realized as I was writing Drabbles, I realized I was kind of using a 3-act structure and breaking them down into roughly 30 word, since a Drabble's 100 words, right? Exactly, not counting the title or hyphenated words. I would break them down into kind of roughly 30 word chunks, like first act, second act, third act. And that's another practice that I have really found beneficial to me as a writer, because plot's something I'm actually pretty terrible at. I think I'm more of a poet than a fiction writer by nature, but fiction's my passion. So I'm always trying. And so it helps you get a handle on the language and a handle on the plot.
Yeah. No, I think. What was that? Somebody's got an echo. I think for me, why I struggle with them so much is because I feel they have to be a story.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas what you were saying about them being a moment in time, that's all well and good, but I've read some that aren't. They're just basically somebody looking out of a window.
Yeah.
But for me, it needs to be a complete piece. And I just struggle to wrap that in my head. Basically, I'm just completely undisciplined. I'm a complete pantser, and I never plot a damn thing. And I just go. I write in almost of a stream of consciousness kind of way. So I start doing a Drabble, and before I know it, I'm 5,000 words into it.
Well, and Tim, may I add one quick thing quickly?
Yeah.
I would say my weakness is that often I'm writing a poem and I'm calling it a story, because that's what's hard about Drabbles, isn't it? Getting the plot. And that's why I try to be disciplined about that 3-act structure. But I'm like you. I mean, I don't always do it. Sometimes I just throw an image out there and say, let's call it a story.
Yeah.
One of the things that I do that I think might help you, that has really helped me as a writer in general, is to not try to write 100 words, to just write your story as concise as possible. And
I do that, and they end up as novellas.
Right. Well,
mate, I'm trying to be concise. This is my point.
That's not. But what I'm saying is, like, if your Drabble turns out to be 250 words, then you start from the beginning and you go, with each sentence, what's not necessary? What are the important words in this sentence to keep it so everyone knows exactly what's happening? And then you do that for each one, and then you just do it over and over again until, like,
the thing is, I think the problem I have with doing that, I mean, I know how to do them, Chisto. I've done them.
I know, but I'm saying, like,
I just struggle with them because I like to. I'm a very descriptive writer.
I get it,
and I also have I feel if I cut too much of it out, it doesn't sound like me. And it has to sound like me, or I'm not selling it. Because if it doesn't sound like me, what's the bloody point?
The thing is, Tim, what these people down in my corner don't understand is that with you, every single word, even if it's 30,000 of them, every single word matters.
Exactly.
Understand?
You know, there's been some really good questions that we're not answering right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I was going to get round to it if you'd shut up and let me
Cut me
answer.
off. Cut me off. I'm a college professor. I talk too much. Cut me off if I talk too much.
Even with your tiny mustache, sir.
Right, we got a question from Matt Reynolds. Do you guys think sequels have to feature the same characters and setting, or can sequels be simply thematic? That's a good question.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
Go ahead, David.
Yeah. Well, it depends what you're talking about, really, isn't it? Some people, if it's a story and it has a narrative, then I think it has to have narrative development from one to the next.
Yeah.
I don't think theme is enough. But if it's a piece of music, like an album, like a concept album, then I think that's fine.
Yeah.
But then I think anyone can slap a number onto an album and say, this is McCartney 1 and this is McCartney 2. 30 years later, here's McCartney 3. It's a sequel. I don't think it should work like that, but
no, but that's how it goes, isn't it? It was like, how long was there between Meatloaf, Bat Out of Hell, and Bat Out of Hell 2? About like 20 fucking years or something.
But you know what? They're both great albums, so whatever.
Good examples.
Yeah, but like I don't think like Inception and Tenet have quite a lot of similarities and themes and stuff, but they're not sequels. So, I think you need to have something, either it's set in the same location, like the Silent Hill games are set in the same location in the sequels, but there needs to be some kind of common thing if it's a story, led, I believe. And that's not to say you can't have stories in music, though, as well.
That's very true. Yeah.
That's my official answer.
Yeah.
By the way, Tim, I love your shirt. I don't think you have to have the same characters, but there has to be some kind of link that carries the story forward.
Yeah.
Let's say the first book occurs, today, and then the next book happens in 2060, and the characters from the original book are either dead or gone. You have to make that connection to the original book. Mm-hmm. But I think you can use totally new characters to create a sequel.
Oh, yeah.
No, I totally agree, yeah.
I just the easiest tie between an original and a sequel is the characters. But if you don't have the characters to work with, you can still write a sequel, and it can be a good one. The problem you run into, and I've seen this in some authors' work, they'll write a book that introduces a new character, and frankly, I don't like the new character, and it kills the story for me, even though I really love the original. Sometimes people attach to a character more than a story. So when you're writing that sequel, you have to know your audience. Are they in love with your characters, or are they in love with this story?
Like I said, but I don't know if you've played them, but like the Silent Hill games, like that's what they do.
I love them, mate. I absolutely love them.
Not often that the characters come across, but it's the place and the themes. But there is like a connective thing somewhere along the way.
It's like the second one, which I think for me is the best. The story of the second one is the most like completely fucked up computer game story of all time, and I absolutely love it. But it's got barely any connection to the first game, or the third game, or the fourth game, or the whatever. But the connection is the place and the theme, the sort of the themes it plays with, like your purgatory and private hell and all that kind of business.
Yeah,
absolutely amazing stuff.
But if you took Silent Hill out of it and just set it in Hawthorne or something like that, it wouldn't be a sequel.
No.
You know what I mean? Or would it?
No, I agree. Yeah.
Well, I think of sequel, has kind of a particular definition here, and I think that like common themes, common threads can bind on authors' work together. Like I think of Tim, your love of cosmic horror and Lovecraft, whose works had the Lovecraft mythos, the way that all weaves together, despite wildly divergent stories. Somehow they feel so related. They almost are all one body of work.
Well, pretty much everything I write is connected in my own mythos. I mean, pretty much everything I write is somehow connected to something else.
Same.
Because I love that kind of thing. I think I prefer shared world to actual direct sequels. Yeah, and that was something I actually put across to Charles now, because again, you're into the cosmic horror and stuff like that. I mean,
yeah, I was just going to say most of the stuff I've written are actually shared universe. Even the one for Curse, they're all shared. In this universe, I came up with the idea that all folklore and mythologies around the world are true. They're not just simply stories.
Yeah.
And I have another one, a group of series in which, one, they're connected to the Cthulhu mythos. They'll mention towns and places, and sometimes creatures from the Cthulhu mythos come in, and time travel exists, and they usually feature time traveling. So yeah, I'm more into a shared universe. I have never written a direct sequel, and that's probably because I am hugely influenced by Lovecraft. Like I said, I've been to his grave many times, only like 15 minutes away. So
nice.
Wow.
I have yet to write a direct sequel, but they are shared, and most of the time you have to read them together to find it. Like, obviously, if you read the four stories in the Curse, you can see, oh yeah, well, the whole concept is there are wizards and all folklore exists. Bigfoot exists, Yeti exists, the Kelpie exists, and elves and all that stuff.
Nice.
Oh baby, hi baby.
Joining us.
I got a couple of those somewhere around here.
I've got an octopus and a wizard's hat.
Pretty good, baby. For a Cthulhu fan, a cosmic horror fan, that fits.
Exactly.
You give birth to it, Tim? That's what I want to know.
Here's my baby for the evening.
Yeah. Right. Yours is a bed, isn't it? Okay, we're going to move on while Chisto's.
But as far as sequels, I think it's tricky. Like, I think you can do really good sequels just on the universe and a specific aspect, like if it's about a ship, like the different crews or things like that. Like the atmosphere can make a sequel, but you still have to connect it somehow. The other characters still have to come in. Even like if you read the Dragonlance books, and then the sequel, the second generation is their children. So it's still connected. Like, I don't know if you can just completely detach and make a worthwhile sequel. That's my input on that. I also like to say Matt Reynolds' Silent Hill 2 is definitely the best, though 3 is a runner-up.
Right. Yeah, I would second. 2's the best for me.
2's the best.
I'm a big fan of 4. It's a shame that the gameplay ruined that a little bit. But the story for that was incredible.
The story is incredible, but those bent over backwards ghosts that are impossible.
Yeah, the ghost things. They just ruined it for everybody. It's true, man. They did. They just screwed the whole pooch.
Yeah, it really did. But
right, Callum asks,
really good.
what was the favorite part of your own stories? What made you punch the air? For me, it was actually getting it work.
Yeah, Chris.
It's fun to do, isn't it?
Like, I finished the trouble.
Sorry.
I love it.
David?
Geez, I don't really like my own work, so none of it really.
We're all our own biggest critics, aren't we, mate? Like, seriously, I barely read anything of my own.
I wouldn't punch the air at anything that I wrote. I suppose, like, probably I quite like the final, the drabble. What I did was I did it like out of the 9. The kind of storyline finishes in the 8th one, and then the 9th one is like the aftermath of it, and it's nice, like kind of light-hearted one, and it kind of sets up another adventure. If there ever is going to be another adventure. And I quite like that one. That one's all right.
Excellent. Gary?
I don't know if there was anything in particular that I got excited about and punched the air. Yeah, I nailed that, but I enjoyed the whole thing.
It'd be a bit odd, wouldn't it, really? That
That's not writers, that's movie stars.
Yay for me!
I love the magic in modern times ideal. You know, the Dresden's and Files kind of books by Jim Butcher, the Iron Druid by Kevin Byrne. That type of stuff I love. And getting a chance to write
Files is great.
The Nick Halloran books by David Green.
Hell yeah, David. Woo woo! I don't like my own work. Self promo. Woo woo!
You don't have to like. I don't have to like it to promote it.
Others have to like it. That's the point, right?
That's
That's definitely the point. Absolutely, definitely the point.
Yeah, for me, it was like my punching moment was just like I finished it, and it makes sense.
That's how Tim felt.
No, it's not like
that's the answer.
That's what it is.
I did it! Holy crap!
That was my moment. And it makes sense. I'm like, good, it works.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. That's for me, is that I wrote 9 of these things. They all make sense, and none of them got rejected. So,
you can even cut that bit out in the middle. I wrote 9 of these things. None of them got rejected. Doesn't matter if it made sense. They were done.
Yeah,
great.
My job here is done. The littlest hobo, isn't it?
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
Yeah.
For me personally, the only moment I punched the air was in my 250 word story. Was when I was like, oh, this is fun. I'm taking a wizard from the past and I'm bringing him to the future and I'm showing it from his perspective and everything. And then when I brought him like to escape the future back to the past with the swords in his face, and he was just like, damn it. I was like, yeah. Like, that was my moment. I was like, that's awesome. I don't care if anyone else liked it or not. Sorry.
Chris?
Well, okay, my serious answer is that I had so much fun kind of getting on top of these 3 major myths from the Fenian cycle of Irish mythology, the Finn McCool stories, the Fenian cycle, and weaving them together in these really short little snippets that I think kind of work. Hope they do. But my funnier answer is I have a funny story I didn't read about a cat, because just the cat thing got me too. Like, it was like when I saw the pictures on the Facebook group, the private Facebook group for the anthology, I was like, I got to do a cat story. And I was inspired by
everybody did by the end, didn't they?
No, maybe not everybody. David,
I did.
Good, man. I haven't read yours yet, I'll confess, but I can't wait to. And anyway, that was fun. Just throwing a cat in there and having him be the real wizard was kind of a funny thing. And my daughter loves that story. She's only 3, but she understands it and she loves it. So that's a success in my eyes.
Yeah, definitely, man.
Definitely.
Yeah. You got to write things for yourself every now and then, or for your family, or you got to do something that means something every now and then, haven't you?
Honestly, like several of my stories that have been published have been inspired by my children, and the ideas are come from my children. So, like, look forward to that, Chris. When they get a little older, they're gonna start giving you stuff, and listen to it, take it, because I'm like, yeah, that's cool, and I write it, and it gets I have one daughter. She's given me 3 ideas. All 3 have been published.
Nice, Chisto.
So, yeah, she's on point.
That's interesting, because myself and David were talking to Harry Navarro.
Oh yeah. I love coffee.
on one of the 0 hour things. Yeah, his kid accused him of plagiarism.
Oh, it's gonna be the new thing, huh?
Because he came to him with an idea, and he was like, "Oh, that's kind of cool." And then about a couple of weeks later, it turned up in one of Harry's work.
Wow!
Yeah.
Plagiarized his own kid.
Wow.
Well, if you're gonna rip someone off, you might as well keep it in the family. That's why.
No,
That
no.
way, if they win the lawsuit,
definitely
you
make
still
sure
got the
I have
money.
permission.
Yes.
Definitely make sure I have permission. I actually, I have a story that was just accepted by Raven and Drake that my kid came up with when she was like 10 or 11. She's 15 now, and I finally wrote it. I always knew it was a good idea, but like it just didn't have its place, you know. And I wrote it, and boom, accepted. Like she's been on point since she was young. Like that. Sometimes kids' minds think of like we think too hard on it, you know. Like kids just come out with it. Like you gotta trust the children. You'll see, David. Give it a few years. Ollie'll be on it.
He already makes loads of stories. He's full of them, and
See?
you know, frankly, he can keep them to himself.
You say that now, but eventually they'll make you money.
They can make him money. I want him to keep him for himself. Like, I don't want it. I don't want him because I don't want to be accused of plagiarizing him.
Well, no. In my case, I say to my kids, I have to write this, and I can't come up with something, and they just come out like, well,
Wow.
what about this? What about this? What about that? What about this? Try this. Try that. And then I'm like, ooh, that's good. And then I always give them credit. And
That means you're raising them right, doesn't it? You're fostering their imaginations, which is so rare.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely, yeah.
How do
One
you
of them
find
has become a brilliant writer of her own and has actually been published in a book that I was in, like beside me. So, you know, obviously it's working.
Definitely. Right.
Whatever, Tim.
Tim's sincerity there was
Next
too much for me.
question.
Made me mushy. It was too mushy for
Right.
me.
Next question is from Adrian Fletcher. He asks, what authors do you guys think of as influences on your stories? Or do you take ideas from other areas? Now, I think I've already probably touched on my influences. I wear my
these stories?
My influences on my
Stories,
sleeve.
yeah.
I've got Cthulhu there, you know. Yeah, I mean, I'm influenced by the old pulp, weird fiction and horror. I mean, I grew up. I'm a big fan of people like Robert W. Chambers and Arthur Machen, Algernon Blackwood, H.P. Lovecraft. They're kind of my influences. And I've never aspired to be anything other than pulp. I want to write good pulp fiction, you know, like the stuff I used to read when I was a kid, man.
Right.
Like the stuff that really got my motor running, you know, that kept me up at night going, oh, there's tentacles under my bed. That's the shit I want to write, you know. Yeah, so I'll move that along to David.
Yeah, like I mean, I've done a few of these where I've kind of talked about like broader influences and stuff. For these stories in particular, funnily enough, it was actually David Eddings that I kind of used as a influence, even though I'm not a huge. I was when I was a kid, but going back to
my missus is a big fan of his.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of him anymore. Like, it's very of his time. Like, he's very, like, you know, it's very 1970s fantasy, like 1980s fantasy. But, like, all of his stories are basically about the same thing. Talking about that sequel theme thing, it's all the same theme with different characters, basically. But that's kind of what I drew from on this, because it was all of his stuff is basically like a bumbling character who's actually really, really talented, who's just a bit of a prat. Gets into some kind of big thing with gods and monsters and end of world kind of things and prophecies and everything. So that's what I kind of went to. Like, he does great dialogue, I find, as well. His dialogue's very, very snippy and fun to read, despite like the flaws of the rest of the stuff that he does. But it turns out that his wife wrote all the dialogue to one of his books. So his wife was a great dialogue writer, and so that's probably what it is. But yeah, that was one of the things was Eddings for this one. Yeah, redemption of Alphalus in particular was one that I went to.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's interesting because I was just thinking like about my sort of influences on that. Obviously, there's the Lovecraft thing. Because obviously I've gone the Cats of Ulthar, so it's kind of inescapable. But I think in my writing in general, I obviously I can't write the purple prose like Lovecraft could, nor would I want to. I've got a very, very British sensibility and sense of humor. So I kind of like to think of my writing as kind of like Monty Python and Carry On films meets H.P. Lovecraft.
Yeah,
That's kind of how that's what. Yeah.
Carry On Cthulhu. That's what it is.
Oh yeah. I'm doing that at some point, mate. I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I'll read it.
And I want to read it.
Yeah. Right. Gary, influences, sir.
When I was growing up, my favorite books to read were the classic sci-fi. Asimov, Heinlein, Bradbury, loved everything that they wrote. I never had any desire to write those kind of stories, but they very much the way that I write, the manner that I write, the way that I put descriptions together and dialogue. So from that respect, that's where I got a lot of my writing influence. But the first time that I started reading things that I thought, oh, I want to write like that kind of a story. In the 80s, I was reading Piers Anthony, Anne McCaffrey, very fantasy-oriented stories. Later and more recently, the ones that really grab my attention are the modern times with magic infused into the real world. And I think I mentioned earlier Jim Butcher with the Dresden Files, Kevin Hearn with the Iron Druid series, and and David Griffith's book, Dead Man Walking, is beautiful. That's the kind of stuff that I love to write, the kind of stories that I love to write. My writing style goes right back to Heinlein and Asimov and the 60s and 70s sci-fi structure. And I don't know if people hate that now, but that's still the way I write.
Gary, have you read Nnedi Okorafor?
I haven't, no.
She has a lot of stuff that fits into that category. You'd probably really enjoy it. And she's, I think it's Okorafor. She's from Nigeria, and she's brilliant. And all her stuff is like modern day mysticism. It's really, really, her world building is phenomenal. Like it'll blow, even her stuff that's meant for kids will blow your mind.
I'll have to hunt for that. That sounds good.
I think 60s and 70s sci-fi held up really well compared to other stuff from that era.
Oh yeah,
I agree. Yeah,
for sure.
The whole Martian series by Bradbury, we all know that.
So
Ray
good.
Bradbury was a genius. There's no way around that.
Ray Bradbury is undervalued too. I feel like he doesn't get the acclaim he deserves.
Yeah, I've got you mentioned Piers Anthony. I have a little thing that when somebody asked me on an interview a while ago what my proudest moment as a writer, it's making Piers Anthony wince. We're in an anthology together, and he did a review of it on his blog.
That's awesome in itself.
Yeah, and he did a review of it on his blog, and he went, "Monster in the House" by Tim Mendees. This story made me wince.
Yes.
I would have that knitted into a pillow and put that on my bed.
Right? Hell yeah, definitely.
Seriously, definitely. I was going to put on my website, Piers Anthony. I was saying, Tim Mendees made me wince. Piers Anthony.
Yes.
That's great.
Right, yeah. Charles, influences, sir.
Well, one of them you already know would be Lovecraft. Of course. I just mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
I'm also quite influenced by Milton. And
nice.
But in terms of non-writers, Mr. Cthulhu there. Horror director Lucio Fulci, I'm actually quite influenced by. You can see you can see it by I tend to focus a lot on eyes and
God.
One of the stories I contributed, Tokoloshi had like tons of blood and guts in it, and I removed it all because I didn't think it was appropriate. And then others, Trent Reznor of 9 Inch Nails. You know, I know his music and his lyrics, they're like fantastic. I mean, he's like a poet. And
Have you
I
seen
mean,
Broken videos?
yes.
There's some
Yes,
real
no,
storytelling in there for sure.
Yeah, he's really
Oh, yeah, I mean,
good. He's really good.
I mean, but the thing is, I always see Trent. I've been sorry, but as a lifelong rivet-headed goth, I see Trent as kind of, he's more of a watered-down, skinny puppy.
Oh, for sure, definitely.
Yeah.
You listen to their
puppy,
stuff,
yeah.
man, and that's really. But yeah, it's funny because they're my influences too. It's like I'm a big fan of Trent. I'm a big fan of Nine Inch Nails, but yeah, some of that industrial stuff from the late '80s, early '90s, it's just.
Skinny puppy is a joke, man.
You have to call him. You have to call him
too.
his composer Trent Reznor these days, anyway.
He does a lot of stuff for.
Yes,
He does stuff for like movies. He does a lot of scoring now.
Yeah, it's scores and soundtracks and stuff.
He's It's just a Tony away from having a clean sweep of awards. One of the few people in history, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is not bad.
His soundscapes are superb, but that's not why I listen to Nine Inch Nails. I mean, I had a problem with Nine Inch Nails after the Downward Spiral because he went into all this piano dirges and twaddle. Like the Fragile was a double album. If he'd have cut that down to one single record, that'd have been awesome. I mean, I was a big fan. The thing is, I was a fan of him before Nine Inch Nails. I was a fan of Option 30 and the stuff he did with Al Jurgensen from Ministry, with like 10,000 Homo DJs and that kind of stuff. So, you know, Broken for me is the pinnacle of Nine Inch Nails. But, yeah. Sad old goth.
It's their most gothy of albums as well. It's the most goth
of course it is.
On this topic, like one of the things that really like took me to a different level of horror is we got this bootleg VHS. Yeah, I'm freaking old. Whatever.
I've got a stack of them in the corner.
From a street vendor in New York City of the Broken videos, which was it was all the videos from
Happiness in Slavery and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
From the Broken videos by Nine Inch Nails. But at the end of the VHS, a guy goes over to a parked car and talks to the person through the window and then basically kidnaps them and then has them prisoner and in a room, and like it's very camcorderly, like terribly filmed, and tortures them literally while having the Broken videos playing on a TV set in the room.
Yeah.
And we were like, me and my friends were sitting around. We're like, is this part of it? Is this something Trent did? And then we found out, like, it was in the news and stuff that like the FBI was involved, and there was like something terrible that happened. Someone filming this and selling it, and Trent Reznor was like, I had nothing to do with that. Like, yeah, my video's screwed up, but it wasn't me, and it was real. So, like, we were like, holy crap, we just watched this dude get tortured and murdered to Nine Inch Nails. Like, some of my friends were, like, throwing up, and, like, people were really messed up by it. And I was just like...
I'm pretty sure it was a work, mate. I'm pretty sure.
I'm telling you, I don't know. Like, if it
mate, I've seen all the footage, and it is
seen the footage of the guy that was hanging from the chains that got his
because it was the extended video version of Happiness in Slavery. It was the rushes from pretty sure.
Anyway,
I don't know. I could be wrong.
Anyway,
I mean, it was in the news. Whether it turned out to be real or not, I can't say. But it was in the news that the FBI was investigating, and there was a thing. So we were freaked out because we were like, is this real? Like, because it was really if it wasn't real, it was really guerrilla filmmaking. Like it was very poorly filmed and like
It's the early
homemade.
90s, mate. Anything that wasn't anything handheld was poorly filmed.
Even in the 90s, man. I mean, it was, but like
Broken came out in 1993. Handheld cameras were about that big and rubbish.
Anyway, influences on the stories.
Yeah, influences on the story. Over to you, Chris Hall.
Not Trent Reznor. I'm sorry to disappoint you.
Get my influences, whatever, Tim. I see how it is.
Just quickly, I feel like I have books in two worlds, probably. I have feet in two worlds. I have a foot in sort of like so many upper middle class. Well, I'm pretty much middle class white kids trying to emulate Tolkien, while not nearly having the kind of linguistic skill or education that Tolkien had. So, the mythological, really, from ancient myths of Ireland to people who have built their own mythologies like Tolkien and even Lovecraft to a lesser degree, though I am troubled, I'll be honest, I'm troubled by Lovecraft's racism and sort of toxicity.
Right.
Not to try to promote cancel culture exactly, but just his poem is abhorrent to me more than his creatures even. It haunts my dreams more than any tentacles could. But nevertheless, the pulp guys too. I have that in common with Tim, who stepped away. But Robert E. Howard, Conan story.
Yes.
I have a piece that is
time. If I had gotten to say my influences, that would be one of them.
So I have a foot in the pulp world and a foot in sort of this high fantasy, highfalutin academic world that really I don't belong in, but I love the mythology and the depth of like a legendarium like Tolkien or the mythos of Lovecraft is admirable, and his purple prose, as Tim pointed out, is quite enjoyable. I've been loving that stuff since I was 12.
It's like so often prose when it gets too purple. It's like when you read it like by lesser writers, it can turn you off in an instant.
That's right.
But you read it in the hands of somebody like Lovecraft or Arthur Machen or Fritz Lieber, even.
Fritz Lieber, yep.
Yeah, and their purple is just like,
I would also like to throw in Alan Dean Foster, who's written a lot of sci-fi and fantasy, and just his world building and just everything he's done was mind blowing to me and really influenced. If we're going with the wizard theme and not horror, but like right. this book specifically, definitely Alan Dean Foster.
Oh, I love Alan Dean Foster. The Midworld, his Pip and Flink stories, awesome books.
Yes, for sure. Thank you, Gary.
Absolutely.
I would say William Gibson too. I occasionally try to write sci-fi, and William Gibson is such an incredible author. He's another one I emulate. But let's go to outside of the genre, I suppose, that we're discussing here.
Go for it, man.
Michelle River, you just came back, but you missed where I gave props to you earlier. Sorry, just saw that in the comments.
I think she's probably only just commented.
Oh, yeah, he did.
She's probably been there the whole time.
She's always there, watching and listening. And Alan Dean Foster.
Sorry, Chris, did you finish your answer?
I'm good, man. Yeah, I could go on about influences all day. Poetry, I'll say two quick poets, William Butler Yeats and Nuala Ní Dhomhnaill. I don't know if I'm saying that right, David, but Nuala Ní Dhomhnaill.
Nuala Ní Dhomhnaill, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I don't know if anyone's familiar with her work, but she kind of, in a poetic form, she does a lot of what we're kind of all, I think, as a group fascinated by, which is brings those ancient myths into the modern world. And she does it through poetry in a way of sort of discussing the impacts of colonialism on Irish people. And she does it in all kinds of amazing ways. And she refuses to publish in English without also publishing in Irish Gaelic, which I think is a beautiful kind of political.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah. It's good stuff.
I do the same.
Do you really? Not notice the Gaelic. I've been looking for it.
Another thing.
I guess I have to buy your novel. What's it called again? Dead Man Walking. Yeah, that's
yeah.
The Irish version.
The second one too. Don't stop there. Come on now. Another person I'd like to cite with this particular genre is Ralph Bakshi. Yeah, thank you. The Wizards movie. I saw that as a kid, and like he took wizards and fairies and all these things and brought like them. He made them the future, and they dug up Nazi paraphernalia and like started like almost a reenactment of World War II, but with fairies, and I was just like so blown away by that, like that you can go that outside the box and combine real history and current days and fantasy. And that's always stayed with me. And I've always tried to like incorporate things like that. That movie to me is just brilliant.
It's an awesome one. And I want to throw out, I have to say, Neil Gaiman. If Gary, you haven't read Neil Gaiman's work, I think you'd like it. American Gods in particular, but I'm done. Like I said, I could go on all day.
Yeah. What was
Neil Gaiman's the genius?
Nancy Boys? Yeah, Neil Gaiman and his I can't remember the name of the book, but it was raising a ghost in a cemetery.
The Graveyard Book.
Graveyard Book, yeah.
Cemetery.
That's got night gaunts in it.
It does, his Lovecraft stuff.
Yeah, that's got night gaunts in it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Gets a win from me. I love those faceless winged bastards. I really do. Right, I'm going to start wrapping this up now.
I think we have one quick question from Michelle Marie because she asked it ages ago.
Yeah. I was just going to do a very, very quiz. Which one? Where the hell was it?
She asked it back in 2017.
Yeah, I thought she did. Yeah. What? Which one? Is this available in Kindle?
No. It's further than that one. It's just after Adrian's question. Oh, Greg Cunningham's just come into the chat as well. Hello, Greg. How's it going? He's here to sell some t-shirts.
Is he trying to flog them? Yeah, for those who don't know. Oh, here we go. Did any of the Drabbles written by other authors inspire any ideas for your own future works? For me, no, because I haven't actually read any of it yet. Because I'm still waiting for the paperback. I don't do reading. I wait till I have a book, and I haven't got it yet. So
yeah, no, not in terms of like anyone in the group, because obviously that's their own stuff, and you don't want to kind of just like look at them and kind of tread on the toes or anything. But I will say, in terms of Drabbles, like I only discovered Drabbles March last year, probably February last year. The first call that I saw from, I was too late. It actually closed by the time that I actually saw it, and I started looking at it. But I read the book that came out, and I don't think she's probably not on this listening to this, but one person who's Drabbles that I absolutely love is an author called Mackenzie Richardson, who I think is like, she's a terrific author anyway in general, but her Drabbles are like, you know, as Chisto was saying about how Michelle River said earlier, like they capture a moment, but they also tell a story at the same time, and the imagery is really good in them. She's got a real skill for them. On that note, in this group as well, when I first got into this indie world, one of the first kind of books that I was arc reading for was It Calls from the Forest, and Gary's story in that was one of my favourite stories that I read last year, actually. So while you're here, I just want to say it's a great story. I loved it.
Good job, Gary.
Thank you.
Nice.
That's me.
I was going to say, Gary, you're up.
As far as Drabbles influencing my writing, I try not to let a Drabble influence a Drabble that I write, because basically that's just stealing. If
right.
And you're right
back to plagiarism again. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. But I do have to say that I have read Drabbles that got me thinking. Whereas, okay, that was really a good piece. Now, what happens 5 minutes later? And that'll get me thinking and get me into a story idea. So I have done that before. But as far as
she follows up that question with the imagery from Drabbles can really spark imagination.
Absolutely.
Which is what you're saying, yeah.
That has happened. I've been reading Drabbles and thought, oh man, that's a great idea, but what if, and then put my own twist on it and see what went from there. And that I've gotten story ideas from that. So absolutely.
Charles?
Well, I'm with you, Tim. I'm waiting for the paperback. So I haven't had a chance to read anybody else's yet. So in terms of, I can't pronounce her last name because I don't know how to pronounce it, but she's from Australia. Zoe X-O-L-T-O-N. Yeah. And I like her stuff a lot. I've read a lot of her stuff. We're somewhere in some of the same books together. So I have to say her. And I might as well just say Tim, David, Gary, Chisto, and Chris.
Yay! Thank you, Charles. We love you too.
I'm loving this little round of applause thing we've got going on. It's great. Chisto.
I pretty much completely agree with what Gary said. I read there's some drabbles I read and I'm like, oh man, that was good, that was brilliant. But I don't take that from my own work because like it's a moment, you know, like if you take from a moment, like what do you take other than what they've already done? But you can go, where's this go here and get inspired by it and create something. I mean, I wrote in your, you know, typical Tim Mendees way too long fashion, I wrote a novella off of a 2-sentence horror story that I read somewhere. So, you know, little things can inspire big things, but you know, I'm not going to write a drabble from a drabble.
No. Yeah. Mr. Hall?
I kind of would echo what Chisto and just echoed again from Gary. So we'll have this kind of cacophonous re-echoing of you know, not wanting to steal.
We are an echo chamber.
Echo chamber. We are the definition of. But I will say that one drabble, I just Googled it. I stumbled across it when I was kind of researching these I discovered these almost the same time you did, Mr. David Green, last year. But there's one on Black Hair Press's site. I don't mean to advertise for them, but Raven Corin Carluck's Once, which is about a girl who discovers. Well, go read it for yourself. It's called Once, and it's on Black Hair Press's website. It was chosen as a best of a month or a year, or something like that. And the way that the author, I'm assuming she captured that moment. I think you can learn from the way someone captures something and the way it has a very clever twist at the end. And tells a complete story, which are 3 hard things to do. So I trust I will take inspiration from each of you, having heard you read. Sorry, I came late. Having heard a few of you read, I think I'll take inspiration when I get a chance to get my paper copy and dig in.
Yeah, excellent. I mean, what I usually take as inspiration from reading other people, it's not so much ideas because I've got too many of them. I'm constantly writing in notebooks ideas and things like that, and I just haven't got time to write all of them.
Yeah.
But I take techniques more than ideas and feelings. I will take oh, that's a clever way of doing that, or that's a clever way of doing that. I mean, I think one of the best things I read an article, and it was how to do the literary equivalent of a jump scare. And it's all about breathing techniques, because even when you're reading in your head, if you've got a long sentence, you're holding your breath. Short sentences, you're panting. And it was about Haunted of Hill House, the book.
Oh, man.
And it was about, like, there was something ridiculous, like it's an entire paragraph with no breaks in it. So you're holding your breath, right? And then after that, she just goes staccato. Like bang, 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 bang. So you're panting.
Yeah. And
if you read it, it is like the equivalent of like, fucking hell. You know?
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing I take from stories.
That's a great technique with drabbles as well that I find, is that don't be afraid to have a single word paragraph.
Yeah. I tend to do that with the drabbles I've done. I tend to go staccato. I'll tend to do
when I'm kind of like, obviously I edit some of them for something else, and a lot of times when I'm editing them, that's one of the things that I kind of focus on, is because sometimes you get them that are just a block of text, and it's like break them up and guide the reader through the moment that you're doing. Yeah, don't be afraid to keep it short with them, because like it is a short form anyway. So
I think even
Greg Cunningham piped up when we were talking about like I think you mentioned like Mackenzie Richardson, some various other people. Sean Kilmeck writes awesome travels. I haven't read any of his, so I can't comment. But there you go.
Yeah,
no, it's good. It's good. He does a lot of good sci-fi stuff, actually.
yeah, he's good.
Yeah, I've read one of his stories and it was very good, but I read a hell of a lot and I can't remember for the life of me which anthology it was in.
I understand that, but in what we were saying before, I feel like even in long fiction, when you're trying to, like, if you go by the specific scenes, and you are dealing with pacing, like you can pretty much throw like the literary writing out the window and just do, like you said, about staccato or run-on sentences, whatever helps get the pacing for the moment.
The thing is, after I read that, I do that a lot because, like I say, I have no pretensions of being literary. I have no aspirations for being literary. I'm pulp. I want to write pulp fiction. I want to write pulp horror, like the sort of thing that really makes your skin crawl, you know, or makes you laugh, or makes you, I don't know, fall over.
I don't know that I don't want to be literary. I just think that, like, for me, what's most important is the
story first and foremost.
Well, I feel like, I mean, yeah, of course, the story first and foremost, but like when you're reading it, like, is the reaction, the feeling, like that it generates from you. Because I love when I read certain authors, and we've lost Chris Hall.
He vanished.
When you're reading someone and like it gets your heart going, or it gets you like sitting on the edge of your seat or whatever, like I want that. I want to be able to give that to people, you know, and it's trying to figure that out. And a lot of that is in the pacing, and the pacing is in how you word it and phrase it.
Of course. Yeah.
I think that Stephen King is really good at that type of thing. I wouldn't call his writing literary, but he's got this, I see you're disagreeing with me, but that's fine. But he's got pacing that's very visceral. So when I read his stuff, I feel it. I mean, it impacts me, and I think.
Well, I think he uses a very similar technique because he does these long passages of descriptions and all this kind of stuff. Right. But then when he lets rip, it's all very. It nails you to the wall, and I think that is a very valid technique of getting your heart going. I think. You know,
but to me, my problem with Stephen King is that he does spend so much time on description that the feeling of the moment gets lost to me, where I just get bored. I'm like, yeah, I get it. There's poop on the wall. Like, I've been reading about it for 3 pages. Like, I'm like, what's happening with the people in the story, you know? But like, when there's people who are, I mean, to me, there's a British horror writer, Simon Clarke. And to me, he does like literature and pulp, like he marries them, and it's so perfect in the sense that like it's so worded eloquently and beautifully, but at the same time the pacing is so like boom, boom, boom in your face that you're just like while you're reading it. And I don't think I could ever do anything that perfect, but I aspire to. So.
Ramsey Campbell is another one.
Yeah, he's good.
Ramsey Campbell is really good. Again, back to the mythos-y stuff, but I mean his stuff is just so intense.
So,
but also literary at the same time. I think that is a line.
I'll tell you someone who doesn't get brought up a lot, who's just marries every single aspect of this kind of stuff, and he does it across horror and sci-fi as well. And like Gary might have read Hyperion, is Dan Simmons.
Dan Simmons.
Oh yeah.
And like he can switch between like different genres. Like even Hyperion, it's a sci-fi. I mean, it's an 80s sci-fi as well, and it's very ahead of its time. I mean, like, you know, it kind of described the internet before the internet was even a thought. Like, you know, it's brilliant, but it has great horror in it as well. And then his horror, like The Terror and other things like that. But he's very good at writing. Like, he's a brilliant writer, and he paces things perfectly. And the way he brings in different elements of different genres when he chooses to do it is like so skillful. And he's like, if anyone's listening, if anyone's still listening, and they are like a multi-genre author or someone that likes to bring in splices of different genres, then Dan Simmons is one who is perfect. But even in Hyperion, he brings in a lot of historical fiction as well.
He does, but he's one of the writers that can write a book that's 800 pages long, and when you get to the last page, you're looking for more. It's just
yeah. He's a real expert, and I don't think he gets, like, obviously people know he is, but I don't think when people talk about the best current people that are writing, he's never really in the conversation, and I think he can do things that other writers can't.
Nice.
I was mentioning David Drake is another one. He was actually a military guy who started writing and was trying to use a lot of tactical military stuff in his writing, but he didn't want to write modern day stuff and started writing a lot of fantasy and science fiction.
Lost him again.
And incorporating like military strategy and he just created some of the most incredible, believable, full-on wars, like just spanning trilogies. And I remember I was in 8th grade when I discovered him, and I would go to like the local small bookstore and just look for anything he wrote and buy it. David Drake's a good one.
Right. We are going to wrap this up because we're heading up to 2 hours now, which is ridiculous.
And now it is tomorrow. It's midnight. It's gone midnight. So
all together now. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear David. Happy birthday to you.
So are we having a Zoom birthday party? Is that what we're doing tomorrow?
No, this is it.
This is the birthday party.
Oh, well, then happy birthday to you.
Right, yes. So, my first guest this evening has been Mr. David Green.
I have aged.
That's how you can check him out. That's David Green Writer.
So wait, did you turn 38 or 39?
I turned 38. I've still got a little bit of time before I'm 40.
A little bit. Yeah,
that's
everything changes at 40.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
It does too, damn it.
Nothing ever changes. I've been the same pillock since I was 16.
I have too.
I honestly haven't changed.
Yes.
I have many phases of my life, and one of the turning points was when I met you.
He's now a chrysalis.
Turning point for you.
He's about to be a
wonderful turning point. Thank you for acknowledging that publicly.
Yeah.
Well, it would be remiss if I didn't, I think.
It would be remiss, sir. It would be very, very remiss. My second guest was Gary Wilbanks, G. Allen Wilbanks. And there we go. That's how you get hold of his stuff at the bottom.
Dean shows up.
Thank you for having me on.
Excellent. No problem, sir. No problem. Thank you for joining us. Yep. And my guest after that was Mr. Charles Reis, who we need to have. I mean, look at his website. Yeah. Come on. Hurry up.
Charles Cthulhu.
Yeah. Charles Cthulhu. I love it. I absolutely love it. You need to come on after hours. We need to talk tentacles for 2 hours. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And yeah, somebody who probably needs no introduction. Thank you for coming on, my friend.
Hey,
ChistoHealy.blogspot.com.
Yeah, before this is over, I want to ask a question to the two tentacle people. Since you guys have such a love for tentacles, have you seen my all-time favorite anime, which is
probably not?
Do you not watch it? How do you love tentacles and not watch anime? Do you not watch anime?
I watch it.
Okay, Tim?
No.
We've talked about it before.
I'm so ashamed of you right now. I can't even be friends anymore.
Tim is scared and confused by anime. We've covered this before. He has no idea what's going on with it.
It doesn't make sense with who you are, sir. Go look up Urutsuki Doji Legend of the Overfiend and watch it.
Do you want him to?
Do I need a family-sized packet of tissues? Well,
Tim, just trust me. Trust me. Go watch it.
Cartoon porn just doesn't do it for me, mate.
It's not porn.
It just doesn't.
It's not porn. It's not porn. Just trust me. Watch it. It's an apocalyptic fantasy meets modern day, fits with the theme of this entire thing.
And our final guest, who we've lost, he's vanished. You know, he's gone into the ether somewhere. Was Mr. Sad. Chris Hall. So thank you to him wherever
My
he
heart
is.
crying.
You silly sod. That's Chris Hall.blog. And like we said at the top of this, if you want to get a hold of a copy of this, Curse, we were talking about this, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yes.
We're
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
We're here to sell copies of the book.
So, yes, so that's how you get hold of a copy. It's getbook.app/cursed.
It's
and
really,
that's from
really
Iron
good.
Faerie, and I've lost the damn. And Iron Faerie Publishing, so that's ironfaeriepublishing.com. Thank you all for watching, and if you made it through the 2 hours that we've been talking absolute cobblers, you have immense staying power, and I applaud.
Cobbler?
I applaud you.
I want to be a cobbler. I love cobblers. How does cobblers have to do with this? Cobblers are delicious.
It's the British cobblers. Means bollocks, mate.
Now I'm hungry and disappointed.
And on that note, thank you all for joining us. This has been a live book launch for the book Cursed from Iron Faerie Publishing. I'm Tim Mendees with my guests David Green, Gary Wilbanks, Charles Reis, Chisto Healy, and Chris Hall. Thank you very much, and good evening, good night, goodbye.